Excellent. Welcome everybody. Again, my name is Sergio Pages. If you were to pronounce it right, it would be Sergio Pages. Originally from Venezuela, South America. I'm sure you've heard it on the news a lot this year. In any case, as Adrian was saying, I work for Structure Tech. I've been with the company for 33 years. I started as a CIO because my background is in IT, but I left that field and I went into client relations management, which is basically I manage a portfolio of clients throughout the country. What we do is we restore buildings. That's essentially what we do, but it's the exterior of buildings. And also pavement for my civil engineers over there that don't want to discard them. But in any case, the heart of the organization is about managing projects, and managing for our clients. So I have literally hundreds of projects, programs within each client that I manage throughout the country. So AI has been exciting, actually, for me. Because, like I said, I started in IT and I left it. I went more into project management, and now I feel like I'm going back to that. And I feel like it's going to be a really exciting thing because one of the challenges that I have with businesses or with IT is that despite the promise that it was going to automate things and it's going to make it faster, I don't know about you, but I spend so much time in front of my inbox, reading my emails. And it just seems like entering timesheets and writing summaries of meetings and following up. It just seems like IT has actually created more work for me in the last decade. So I feel like I'm coming back with some exciting tools that are going to help us be more human. That sounds backwards thinking, but I really do feel that it can be a tool to be more human. And I think I'll start with that, and that is that AI is a tool. It's a means to an end. Okay, it's not an end in itself. And I know it sounds pretty basic, but you have to start with that first. So I'm gonna start by talking a little bit with my team here and maybe elaborate on each of us perspective on IT. So I'll start with Michelle. Michelle, what's your perspective on IT?
Do I need this with my microphone?
You do.
Yes.
Oh,
The microphone's for the camera, yeah.
I tracking. Good morning, everyone. So AI is a funny bumpkin, okay? And people are figuring out in various stages and in different ways what it is for them. And we're in a room full of people who are running a business. So it's one thing to learn about AI for your personal time, which might be where you first decided, I'm going to research this and figure out what this is. Or you might have been introduced to it through a work environment, a work situation, either internally amongst colleagues or with a client. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to use AI to leverage our company? How are you going to use AI to leverage your own individual proficiency and efficiency? And then how is AI actually going to change the work dynamic that I've been so used to? So my position on the matter is, yes, AI is a tool. And in the presentations that I've given in the past, that is something that I talk about because let's face it, the adoption or the introduction, let's say the introduction of AI on a mainstream level occurred within the last 3 years. And I'm saying mainstream simply because people are deciding how to use it. It's not that it was first introduced then. That was back in the 1950s, okay? That's when it first started and came to pass. And it's been evolving ever since. We've been figuring that out, kind of flying the plane or making the plane while we're flying the plane kind of thing. So I see it as we have to use this tool to create what we're meant to do and use it to become efficient and more knowledgeable about the things that will make us more impactful, both in our lives and with our clients.
Awesome. Thank you. My position on AI is Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You all familiar with the movie Jurassic Park? You spent all this time figuring out if you could make dinosaurs. You never stopped to ask if you should. And I think that a lot of times in a lot of cases, there's a lot of tools out there that you can do things with. The question is, should you? And I don't mean necessarily from an ethical standpoint, but from an efficiency standpoint. A lot of times we think that we're saving time. And so my position is, I think that there are amazing use cases, but also great caution needs to be exercised because, is anyone familiar with the term API? So we have a list of terms up there. We tried to anticipate the most common terms that we would just be throwing out there that I keep getting people saying, what does that mean? What does this mean? But an API is it's the connection point where the AI connects to different tools. And there's the way that they measure usage is through a term called tokens. And so what they're finding now is the AI companies initially were like, let's basically create a magic show, give these tools away for basically free, lose tons of money on them initially, which is the Silicon Valley motto. And then once we get adoption at an all-time high, then we can adjust the costs. And we're in that season right now where we're seeing the cost adjustment, but they're still losing a lot of money. And so what companies are finding now is that they're passing those costs on to the user. These costs are getting astronomical to the point where they're saying, maybe it actually was cheaper to go with a human being. And so my position is, initially I came into this early on, we used tools even before ChatGPT came out. And my position was FOMO, fear of missing out. I didn't want to be replaced by an AI, so I'm going to be the most AI savvy person there is. And the more I began to adopt it, the more I began to sense and follow people who were actually not selling hype, but selling practical uses. And I found, okay, no, it's like a calculator, and it has practical use cases, but it's not generally intelligent. And I think we have the word up there, general intelligence. So that's kind of my position. I'm not here to be a big wet blanket about AI, but I don't like hype, and I don't like spending money on things you could still do yourself, So anyways, I might be a little bit of a naysayer, but I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Excellent. Thank you, Matthew and Michelle. So next, we're going to share an example of how we've used AI. Of the three of us, I'm the newer guy. I'm just getting started. My case is going to be more of a very simple beginner's type of example. Again, just as a reminder, I deal with projects. Okay, I work with clients that need, for example, a building restored, a parking lot resurfaced, or a parking structure to be restored because it's been. It needs to be some care of the parking structure. So my case is the following. I had a client, a very large hospital system, that asked me to put together a proposal to restore a parking structure. It's like a 5-story parking structure. It's way up north in Sault Ste. Marie. And after I sent our structural engineer to do a complete analysis, we came up with about maybe $500,000 worth of work that the parking structure needs. And it's a lot of money because it's hospital. The parking structure is not really something like you would rather put the money in an MRI unit or a scan unit that makes you money. This is not going to make you money, but it's important, So at the end of the conversation, the client says, "Can you please build me or help me with a business case that I can justify this $500,000 investment into my parking structure?" So, great application for AI. So I plugged in my parameters, and then the software, the tool, went out and came up with a cost of that parking structure in today's dollars. So, for example, and I brought some statistics here. The tool says that each stall, if you were to build a brand new parking structure, costs $33,300. Okay, so when you multiply it, I think it was 800 units. That parking structure is worth $15 million if I were to build it from scratch. So if I think about it as an asset for the hospital, this is a $15 million asset. So now, all I'm asking for is 2.9% to restore the parking structure. In fact, all we're doing is restoring the top part that protects all the other decks. Okay. Now, let me clarify something. I did this with a tool, but I need somebody to check whether this information is correct. I can't just take the tool face value. Well, it just happened that I have subject matter experts in my company that have been doing parking structures for the last 40 years. In fact, I have some in the back that have really strong background in different types of civil engineering. So I have subject matter experts in my company that can look at the data and say, oh, no, this, and they help me correct it, And at the end of the day, I submitted the proposal and it got approved by the board because they had a strong business case for this, So moral of the story is, yes, the tool can be helpful, but you cannot not apply, critical thinking, checking the sources of it like I did with my subject matter expert. This is basic 101 in terms of project management because you have to create in project management, we call it a project charter. What's going to justify this project, and you have to show the benefits of it so that it can get approved. And then once that gets approved, then we can actually go into execution. But that's my simple example. I'll turn over to Michelle. Maybe she can share something else with us. Yeah.
I will. So a couple things that I would like to address first. In this AI space, often people get automation and AI confused or they interchange the phrase. I'd just like to take a moment to talk about that, and then I'll give you an example where I'm using AI. So when you think about automation, I want you to think about data. Say you made a phone call, and everything that was in that phone call was put in a box. Automation says, I want everything that's in this box to be moved over here. Boom. Whatever that's the automation. It automatically does. When that box has the contents in it that it's supposed to have, it will move it where it's supposed to go. That's automation. And you as business owners, when you think about your workflows, that's what you're doing is you're saying, when I get information in, what do I want to do with it? What do I want to have done with it? Here's where AI is different. Same conversation, same box. AI is going to come in and they're going to analyze that data. So where your automation might have said, take that and put it over here, AI might say, you know what, there's some stuff in here that it might need to go over here as well. Does that make sense to people? Give me audible nods. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example of some things that were cost saving for our company. Over the years, many things have evolved for us, and I want to give you a present day example. All right. We help our clients develop AI agents, and there's a whole series of steps that goes into that. One of the things that we have to do is we have to collect information from the client so that we can build the brain, okay, or the core information that the AI is going to pull from. I can tell you and assure you, everyone in this room will probably have a moment where they say, I can't meet with you to go over that, or you have a scheduling issue. Now, if we relied on my staff of human beings to take that information, we typically would be playing some phone tag, okay? And then my person, sometimes it's me, okay? It's absolutely me. I love this part of my job because I learn about the clients firsthand. That's a big deal for me. It's a personal interest that I take, okay? So when you're creating an AI agent for a company, that's very different than creating an AI agent for an individual's work environment or a personal assistant. It's very different. So what we've chosen to do, instead of impeding the process with scheduling, we created, using AI, an onboarding system that allows the client to answer a series of questions led by AI, okay? And it's all company-based. So I'm just using an example of a company-based one. So then we have that information transcribed, and it becomes content and data that we can use for marketing purposes, but more importantly, for the application of generating their company AI agent, okay? And then from there, the transcription becomes usable data across multiple forums. What this has eliminated is phone tag to schedule, right? It has allowed the client to provide this information when and where it's convenient for them. So let's face it, we're all busy people. We have families, we have lives outside of work. Sometimes we can't get to certain things that relax our bandwidth so we can do a good job. And it has allowed us to be convenient and flexible for our clients so they could complete this on the weekend or after normal business hours, whatever normal is these days. And then subsequently, it gives us a chance as a team to collectively look at that information and decide what to do with it for the client. So when we meet the next time, that meeting is even more productive and moves us down the process lane quicker. So as far as an example, if I were to say to a client, you know what, just ask your ChatGPT what to do, right? Every one of us, how many in here use a ChatGPT type service? Can I see it? Okay, good, everybody, excellent, thank you. So every one of your personal ChatGPTs is biased to you. Not a good thing for business, okay? Not good. We start from scratch, so it's important that we get that information, extract it, and start it clean, like a brand new baby, right? We want it to grow unbiased, or at least biased to the company, not biased to your personal preferences. Even though some of you have some very strong opinions about how things should be done and see AI or some of your work as an extension of you. I applaud that, and that's what I try to strive for in the business. But this is the example that I would give, and it has saved hours both on our side and the client side, and it has created something that's a working model that's common information that everybody can use. Okay?
Yeah, so there's I think the delineation between understanding AI, what AI is and automation is key, because I think that a lot of people are thinking that automation can be replaced with AI. It's more so augmented or enhanced by it. And so some of the use cases that we found, has anyone ever had, and one of the things I find so interesting is so many people I've talked to are already using AI for some pretty cool use cases. And so there's a lot of you who could be up here talking as well. Has anyone ever had a chance to work with custom GPTs or custom projects with any of these LLMs? Yeah, so those are some pretty quick win use cases that we find is taking an off-the-shelf model, adding to its knowledge base. Just a quick win that we had was we had a client who they have a lot of sales calls. They have the transcript from the sales call. We designed one to basically take the transcript. It had all of their billing information in terms of like how much their services costs, as well as a full list and inventory of all of their equipment. And so it was designed to get within like a 95% accuracy of creating a custom invoice based on a transcript from a sales call, as well as a full strategy and list of equipment that would be needed for the project. And so these were some use cases that typically something like that would take, maybe half a day, where you would get off a call and then have to build out the invoice, build out the list of gear that would be needed, create the strategy, and then come back to the client. Now, full transparency, the tool didn't get it 100% right, but that was Sergio's point, right? You verify it, you tweak it, and then you pass it off. And so that's kind of, I think for me, understanding the difference between a narrow intelligence and a general intelligence has been so key in my understanding and adoption of AI. Are the terms narrow intelligence and general intelligence on the board over there? Do we have those? Okay. Do you mind if I quickly delineate between the two, or is that? Sure. I don't want to get off on things. But narrow intelligence is tool use. In other words, use the tool for this one specific instance, use a different tool for a different instance. And I think that we as human beings, we misunderstand the capabilities of an LLM it surprises us when it shows us the responses from a prompt, and we're like, wow, this thing is better than me. And that's our assumption. The truth is it's not better than you. God made our brains incredibly difficult to replicate, and we are generally intelligent. From every little thing that you've done this morning, coming here, understanding what we're talking about, there's so much task switching that's happening that your brain just automatically does it. And I was explaining this to Adrian. All it takes is water, coffee, and some food. These things require, insane amounts of server farms and electricity and water usage, and the general intelligent component is not something that it is capable of. People say, well, if you have an agent running agents, and then those agents running agents, now you can simulate a generally intelligent system. It's not generally intelligent. And so if there's one takeaway you could get from me is don't approach these tools as if they are generally intelligent, that they can do outside of a single task. Use them for the sole task that you're doing and nothing more. And then as you task switch, you're the general intelligence. You assign the tools. It would be the same as if I was building a treehouse for my kids. And I go and I take my screwdriver and I'm like, all right, screwdriver, I need you to do everything. It's like, no, it does one thing. My hammer does one thing. Does that make sense? I can clarify that more later if you guys want. I don't mean to get too far off on that.
Thank you. Okay, now we turn it over to you. What are the biggest challenges you're facing right now with regards to AI? Anybody? Challenges or that you're facing with AI?
Okay.
Yes. I'm going to walk over to you.
Thank you.
It's more of a question of understanding. I worked with a coach who, in marketing, who's been talking about bots. And I think that's an agent, as I would understand it. But could you share anything about bots?
Matthew or Michelle?
Sure. I'll let Michelle go
Okay.
Very simple. Anything that isn't human is a bot.
I think there's a lot of semantics, right? The terminology. So like what defines an agent? The technical term is an LLM with agentic capabilities. And so what does agentic mean? Basically the ability to go and do work without like you're over. So you can set it on a task and then it goes, right? So it's kind of like the beard fallacy of where does it become an agent versus not an agent. It's a little bit hard to narrow down, but the way how I kind of draw the line is an agent or a bot has tool use. In other words, this agent has access to my inbox and summarizes my inbox or can draft email responses for me. So does that make sense? An LLM think of it like this. An LLM is a brain. LLM, large language model, is a brain. It becomes an agent when you add arms and legs to it. Does that make sense? Okay.
One more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
How many of you were here early and looked out on the field? Okay. Remember those little, that might still be out there, but they were little lawnmowers, robot, okay. Bot. And when they were used, when they were engaged, they set up a path for it to follow, okay? That bot is following that path, and it is mowing that lawn with the tools of the clippers, right? For it to be agentic would mean it's doing its job, right? And all of a sudden, it sees a swan make a mess. And it stops what it's doing, recognizes what it was, and goes over there and cleans that up, and then gets back to doing its thing. That's agentic. So the bot is doing it autonomously, right? But the AI set of it is recognizing situations. The oversight would be humans looking at the work when it's all done. Yep, they stayed right on the lines, they're all straight, and there are no messes around there. Okay?
Can I add one more thing? Or sorry. One of the things that we're seeing in across even Fortune 500 companies where they're spending a lot of money is going back to what Michelle said, the difference between like an AI agent and an automation is and automation traditionally was just a series of if-thens. If this happens, trigger this event. If this happens, trigger that event. It would go without fail. It cost very little. But to her point, if something had an interruption, it wouldn't know what to do. It would either stop or just move past it. And AI, but the problem with AI agents is, yes, they can do automations, but they cost a lot more. And so what I kind of perceive as what I'm hearing now is that the best format is actually a hybrid of the two, where you take traditional automation and then you punctuate it with points of intelligence. Almost like to her point, the lawnmower's going, that whole setup is an automation. But the point at which it needs to become intelligent or have anything higher than just a basic if-then conditional, now you introduce an AI API. Does that make sense? And so people have tried to replace an entire automation system with AI agents, and they're like, whoa, all of a sudden overnight my costs are through the roof. And this was something funny that we saw in Silicon Valley. They actually had leaderboards. Who's using the most tokens? And Uber, I don't know if you guys heard this, I think it was this year, blew through their entire API budget within the first 4 months. Because they're just trying to hit these token leaderboards, and now they're realizing, yeah, this actually costs money. And it wasn't until people started calling out and say, hey, guess what? Just because we say we're using AI doesn't mean we're more efficient. So that's something to keep in mind. Over here, Wes, do you mind if Wes is an architect for AI systems. These guys are super key in understanding like really how to implement. And so he's somebody I'm going to be talking to after.
Wes, you want to share anything from your perspective?
Not to put you on the spot, Wes.
Any highlights?
Spot, right?
Take advantage of you. Yeah.
No, I mean, to reiterate some of the points on the differences between agents and automations, I think that's a key thing that most people miss. They hear the word AI, they know that they feel like they need to do something. A lot of times customers that are approaching us, we find that AI is really not the right solution for them. They're really more interested in automating some things, but where decision-making happens, that's where your agent is. Those are the agentic systems, the systems that are actually making some sort of decision that is not obvious, right? So being able to train those systems in that fashion is where you get to agents. But yeah.
Thank you, Wesley. Excellent. Challenges. What else? Yes.
I will expose my AI ignorance.
Please do. We want that you're.
I work with Matthew, so I'll call Matthew over to my side of the office and I'll say, make it do that thing. Can AI do this? So he said, yeah, sure, I can draft emails for you. So he sets it up so it's put it on the programming for my email system to create drafts. And I'm loving it at first, like, wow, it pulled back. It's reading all my emails. I know. I'm exposing myself to the government, right? So it's reading all my emails, but then like 2 weeks later, it says back to this client, and we're still waiting on that review of that draft. Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. So it was really cool, but then it's creating drafts for all my emails. All responses. I don't want responses, so I'm cleaning out a lot of drafts now. And then I go back, he goes, just tell it not to. So I go back into the knowledge base and I go, okay, stop writing drafts and I spent time putting anything with this email suffix, don't draft for these, anything that says it's subject line with this. So I spent a lot of time instructing it on what not to send drafts. I'm like, okay, good. Then I get a draft saying, we did not want to do a draft per your instructions, we're not creating a draft. Per your instructions, we're not creating a draft. So I had all of these drafts piling up. Okay, that's one example of me wasting time. And then it stopped. It just stopped making the draft. So I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need it anymore. Okay, the other one is we're using it for content collaboration. So writing a complex blog for a client. Highly technical blog, taken from an interview and a webinar. I put the transcript in and I say, just give me an outline. Take the important pieces and give me an outline. It does that with a lot of facts in there. So now I'm looking at this going, do I trust these facts? So back to your point, Sergio, do I trust these facts? Okay, so then I put it into another tool, say, evaluate these, give me the hard fact. Yeah, that was a bit of an exaggeration, like, oh crap, sorry. Now I feel like I'm evaluating a high school student's writing, and I'm fact checking. How?
Great, thank you.
That quote you said, you didn't tell us how much time it saved. You went from that quote, used to take a half a day, took minutes. So that's what I always want. I'm not getting.
That's what she's paying you for.
Hi, so let's talk about something that AI has been fed, and that's ethics. Ethics, so interesting. So I'm in real estate, and I use AI all the time for fire photography, writing remarks, things along that line. Love it, use it, pay for it. But I run into unethical situations of companies that have changed the look of a house physically. The outside of it, making it look absolutely stunningly gorgeous. And a buyer calls them and says, hi, I'm really interested in this house, and goes to go see it. And obviously, they have no interest in it whatsoever because the house isn't the same house. But the company changed the way the house looked online. And what they're doing is shopping buyers. They're shopping investor buyers along that line. And they actually were called out on television for this and watching it on the news and like, oh, this is so interesting. So we feed into these systems unethical situations. Are we going to start to see lawsuits along this line? Or I've got to guess this.
We already have that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine. Yes. One of you want to say something about that? Michelle?
Oh, you know what? This is one of my favorite things about AI. So thank you for bringing that up. And I'm sorry that happened to you. Remember, well, you know, it's a new toy for some people. And one of the things that we as, you know, Christian-based people, faith-based people, we actually have to be stewards of AI. That's really what it is. And you ask about governance, okay? And I've already mentioned that as a community, as a society, we are building the plane as we fly it. And part of that includes the rules and regulations and oversight. AI cannot exist on its own without human oversight because the information that was originally put in by human beings, and we are innately flawed, correct? And so there's constant evolution, so that human oversight can never go away. The governance is coming in. There are ethics committees, there are governance committees being formed now and currently are formed. They are implementing what they call an AI Bill of Rights, so that as an individual, you cannot go after the AI company that produced the AI software, and you can't go after the person who deployed it, right? So then it becomes a matter of what do you want to trust? Then the whole conversation about the companies and the human beings that are operating within that company and building that brand, what is their intention with AI? Is it meant to market the business correctly, on brand, accurately? How much human oversight do they have? And whose authority was it to say that's okay to publish that house? So you got to question that. And that as a human being and faith-based individual, you know, those are some things that you want to sit with. You really do. And as you work with more and more companies and they figure out how AI is going to be a part of their business model, you're going to come into that more and more. Their responses and the content that they put out, how they put it out, what they put out, is going to paint a very clear picture of what they're trying to do once you learn what AI is capable of. And I say that because the imaging that you're talking about, someone somewhere thought that was a good idea, didn't they? Someone signed off on that, didn't they? They absolutely did. And we say that, my husband and I sit watching the Super Bowl, and I watch for the ads, right? Somebody signed off on some of those ads, and we're just scratching our head going, who did that? It's the same thing with AI content. So I often tell my clients, and which is why we have implemented the onboarding process that we have, what you put into AI data is proportionate to what you get out. So garbage in, garbage out. So as an individual playing with AI, even your own personal AI, be careful what you ask it. Your personal AI is going to become biased to how you think and the things, your intention level, right? Their interpretation of what it is you want that data to produce for you. How you apply it into real world scenarios, guess what? That's your own stewardship. That's what you need to be considerate of, because it represents a part of you that AI could never capture. You are the authority on your AI, okay?
So an interesting case here with Air Canada, they had somebody was going for a funeral, and they went on with the chatbot. They said, hey, I didn't utilize the grievance discount. Can I retroactively get that applied as a refund once I get back from my trip? And the chatbot said, yeah, we can do that. So he's like, okay, great. So he gets back from his trip, he calls to get his grievance refund, and the person says, no, you can't get that. And he's like, well, I was told that I could. And then they said, well, no, that was our chatbot. That doesn't count. And he was like, no, I'm sorry, I don't buy that. So he filed a lawsuit. I mean, obviously he pushed back, and they were like, no, that's we can't be held accountable for what our chatbot said. So he fought it and won. And so now precedent law states that if an AI or a chatbot or anything that's an autonomous agent like that takes action on your behalf, you're the one held responsible, not the tool. And I saw body cam footage of a police officer pulling over a guy in a Tesla. And he says, you're going 20 miles over the speed limit. The guy's like, no, that was my Tesla. He's like, you're the one in the driver's seat. So to Michelle's point, I think that Christians should kind of be ahead of the game in that regard. We shouldn't have to be told legally that that's wrong. Well, now we're told legally that that's wrong. But in addition to that, the European Union just now passed a law that stated anything that's created with AI is called SGI, synthetically generated information. It has to be watermarked. In other words, if it's in Europe, it has to have a watermark on it that lets people know this was generated with AI. Well, here's where things get interesting. The companies in America are already just implementing that on their tools. And Claude, for those of you who use Claude, in my opinion, Claude's the best LLM. Let's go. Unfortunately, though, they just implemented this across all their tools. And so let's say you write up a paper and you just send it to Claude and say, can you please just tweak it for maybe making sure grammatically it's correct. It will now watermark that as completely AI-generated content, even though you did 99% of the work. So this is just something to be, there's a pendulum swinging. There's like the saying, water finds its level. Water has not found its level yet with AI. So what's true today may not be true, a month from now. I was telling Adrian, we were talking about these companies like Lovable or Base44, where you can just go build an app yourself, go build a website yourself. Well, as of right now, those are tools, if you're created it with AI, it doesn't show up on AI search. So something created with AI is invisible to AI. That's true now. I don't know if it's going to be true in a month. And then to answer Linda's problems, sorry. I thought it was working for you. But this brings up the point of a lot of times we just chase AI use when it's not necessarily in our best interests. And I think that the principles of business that were true before AI, which were systems run people, I'm butchering this. So basically, like, you build systems, people run those systems, and that operates your business to create a turnkey operation. Completely disregarding AI. Those principles are truer now than ever because people are trying to automate a system that is not a strong system. And there's I heard this quote. I was at this seminar, and this guy said, a system that is he basically said a system that doesn't work just doesn't work faster with AI. So keep that in mind. Like, this is our approach with Identity Creative. We are building a turnkey system, and so our AI adoption is very mindful and methodical, but actually we dialed back on how, because we were crazy. Remember, I was like, every little tool, all we were doing is building AI stuff, and now it's like, yeah, but is this actually helping us? And that's where we had to stop and have those hard conversations and get back to best practices. So anyways.
Thank you. I'm a member of the Project Management Institute. It's part of my, it's something I have to, well, I don't have to, but I want to belong to in order to practice project management and program management. Part of joining that organization is that you're in a constant learning mode. You got to get PDUs. If you're a doctor, you got to get PDUs and so on. So one of the things that the organization is doing is really encouraging people to study this subject so that they are applying project management and AI together. So a question for you is, what are you doing to, or how many of you are taking initiative in learning this formally? Yes, and tell me a little bit about that experience. What have you done? What have you done to study this?
Yeah, I started using it about 5 years ago, for business and for my kids. They were being recruited for colleges, and so I was using it for that, helping them automate and generate more attention to the recruitment. But then learning about prompting was one of the things that, reading articles, listening to podcasts, those are some of the things that I continue to do. But listening to the art of prompting was one of the things that I really wanted to, I'm going to use the word master, but I'm not going to say that they have, but I understand it now, right? Giving Linda's example about email and saying, stop doing that email, I now know you can't just say stop doing that email. You have to say stop doing that email for X, Y, and Z, right? So I've done Anthropic, Google. There's a lot of different free tools out there that you can use to learn more about AI. And so I've taken advantage of those because early on they were really giving away the learning process. So I took advantage of that and took a lot of the free courses.
Great, thank you. Anybody else that is proactively learning about AI? Can you share something about that experience? Wow, we're in trouble if you're not learning. Yeah, I think being proactive and like what you just described, I'm taking a course on prompt engineering. It's the name of the course, and you have to know how to prompt things because I did a prompt last week preparing. Again, I'm preparing a business case or a proposal to somebody, and when I finished, I showed it to my subject matter expert in house. Again, double check, and he said, "Oh, that's not right. This is off." So it was because my prompt was incorrect that it gave me the wrong information. But I was able to use somebody to verify that. But yeah, go ahead. Tell us about your experience learning this.
Hi, I'm Kara. I'm in real estate as well. And what I've really learned predominantly is that AI is not wise. I went into it thinking that it's going to spit back wisdom because it has access to the whole internet quickly. But what I realized as I was spitting back answers to my questions is it was not applying all of Kara's life experiences, business experiences, all my marketing knowledge, and spit back its answers, and I would rebut it, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's a good thought. That would be funny." but then I started to think about it like from the Lord's perspective, and the Bible said, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom," and there's no way that AI has any fear of the Lord on it. And so I think that as a Christian, we really need to delineate, like what you guys were saying, your explanation of box on the grass was perfect. Like, we cannot expect it to be in any way, shape, or form wise. The Lord made our brains wise if we fear Him, if we seek His face. And that's
Thank you, Kara. Thank you for bringing faith back. Adrian, you have a question? Okay, sorry, I'm going to go to Adrian.
Actually a few questions and sort of an experience here. It's interesting because in our industry, we get clients that come in and say, hey, I did all the brand research I want for my company, and this is what I want my logo to look like, and here it is, implement it. And it's a JPEG image. And they have no idea anything more, but it's an interesting thing. So a couple quick questions. One is, when somebody's selecting an AI tool, Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, go on and on and on. Can you guys talk about some guidelines maybe and how to select the right tool? And then what to be aware of. And so I, in my business circles, have discovered how many people are putting their financials out there and have their financials reviewed or analyzed by ChatGPT. Well, where are the safeguards with that? Where are the dangers with that? Publishing information. And then the third question is, in the search engine optimization world, okay, people are just stringing up articles and blogs and posting it. And we had one client send us, these are the blogs I want you to post on our website. Darren, who's my right-hand man, reads them. He goes, hey, client, have you read these? And he goes, well, no, I just, had ChatGPT create it. And he's like, let me show you something. This thing's having hallucinations. It might be on drugs right now. Okay, and he read it and he went, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. So there's like a standard of personal responsibility that goes on. So those are my questions.
I can answer one. What tools? I started using this tool, and I really appreciate this tool. It's called Gemini Notebook. It's Notebook LM, yeah. And the reason I like it is because you give it the sources that you want. Like, it doesn't go out and it does check for sources, but you can tell it which sources you want it to use. And then the other thing is, now, I don't know if this is true, but they claim that this is only you. It's not out in the world. It's a closed environment and it's source-centric. So, and I use it for learning. What happens is you do a research on a particular topic, you put all your sources, and you start prompting with all the sources, only within those sources. And then the last feature that I love is I'm a audio person. So what I do is I say, okay, I want to know more about this subject, and the machine will create a podcast for me about the subject between two people that are really not two people. Or it will create a movie out of the situation, And it helps me understand the subject, And it gets even better. The podcast, you can actually get into the conversation with the agents and start interjecting what they're saying. So that's one of the tools that I use.
Tools. Information, LLMs. Depending on what you want to use it for, each one has its own variation. So I have a couple of, I'm gonna spit some facts at you right now, all right? So every 18 seconds, a new innovation, a new development in AI has occurred. That's how fast it's happening. It's that fast, okay? So since we've been doing this, some stuff has already changed. If you look at what people use in a recent study, and if anybody wants to see this study that was done, just reach out to me afterwards and I'll send you the article if you want to. But there was a study that was recently done, and it's dated August 2026, okay? And it's, okay, what's everybody's, has everybody used ChatGPT? What's your favorite? What's your favorite LLM, right? And ChatGPT was the top one. Okay? What is the most important LLM? So right now, ChatGPT has lost market share because Claude has now taken over the position of usefulness in the workplace and personal life. So I wouldn't profess to come up here and tell you which one to use, because each one has a certain set of algorithms and data mining tools within it that help you get the information that you need aside from what you individually put into it. So I'm going to also leave you with something that you can do. So Devana, prompt engineering, back in the day, about 6 years ago, I put some people through that in my company. And then within 2 years, they thought that that was going to be the next big job out of college. Well, that didn't turn out to be the case, so they were wrong. So I'm going to give you some tips here on prompts. Whatever LLM you use, ask it to cite the sources. Okay? Number one, you can do that and it will tell you, and then you can go. The second piece of that, depending on what you're using that content for, but in any case, which sources are peer reviewed, which means your industry has verified that this information is accurate and the source should be able to tell. So write that down. You need to know that. Cite your sources. Are they peer reviewed? Now the last piece of this, to the SEO component that you were talking about. In the industry right now, there is a term that you should be familiar with. It's called AEO. Okay? Agentic Engine Optimization. What that means is the systems are now looking at the back end of the connectivity of your content. Translation. Just because you say it doesn't mean it's true. And so you will be responsible, or your site will become more verifiable, reliable, and relevant to search engines, especially those of you that have Google AdWords budgets or are using paid for marketing. That AEO component is not seen by the customer. So to your point about the blogs coming in, those are a lot of opinions. Those are a lot of assumptions. Those are a lot of people's experiences, and it's content, right? It doesn't mean that it's overall true. It's just their perspective. That's front-facing. AEO is on the back end talking language to language, connections to content and sources that make it truer, okay? Not necessarily truth, but truer. And they give us some reliability. It's basically what journalism used to have to do back in the day until we turned it into an entertainment industry. So journalism has to have facts to support their statements. AEO is doing the same thing and making business owners, in my space, prove just because you say you're an expert doesn't mean you are an expert. So you're a real estate agent, right? You're a real estate agent. Are you really a real estate agent? Well, you're going to have to prove that on the AEO side. Just because you say it doesn't mean it's so. And that's part of the governance policies that are coming into play, which is good for us, but it also holds us accountable for the things that we say and show our clients.
Excellent. And speaking of accountability, Teresa, how are we doing on time?
We're getting close to time.
Okay, so man, you can put the bow on it.
Oh, okay. So a lot of pressure there. No, yeah. So I think when it comes to tools, to Michelle's point, it really just depends on what your use cases are. I have found that in most of my use cases, Claude tends to be the best LLM. But I'll be honest, things change. Like she said, recently just Grok came out with a new model being challenged by the Chinese models, and it's more efficient. It's not necessarily as good as like their latest model, Fathom 5, but it's more efficient. And so I kind of see these tool development as like they're building a car and they just keep making the car go faster. But at some point we hit the law of diminishing returns. And that's what I'm seeing right now in the research that I do, is we are really starting to hit the law of diminishing returns. The car is about as fast as it can go, unless they start building more data centers, which only 10% of them are actually approved now. So there's a huge cultural component too. People don't want to consume AI generated content. People don't want massive data centers nearby. And so that's really slowing down the production, which means that the game is almost over in terms of like hitting an AI winter. Until they come out with a new model, something that's more efficient, something that can do its work without hallucinations, like a world model. We're not going to see, we're going to see minor improvements. The name of the game at this point is going to be, when can we use an LLM on our computer so we can run it locally? We have what's called small language models, which can run locally on your computer, but they're not as powerful. So where this is probably going to level off is where everyone's computer is fast enough and the models are efficient enough to run on a local computer. When that happens, I don't necessarily know what tool is going to come out as the champion. These Chinese models are really giving American models a run for their money. That's a whole nother conversation. But I would say when it comes to, if you have a large database that you need inputted into one of these language models, that you need accuracy. There's a term called retrieval augmented generation, RAG, R-A-G. What I have seen is that Claude has the ability to house the biggest database for a paid tier and retrieve that information with tremendous accuracy. That's where I've settled in. But now I'm seeing ChatGPT and Grok. I have paid subscriptions to all of them. Perplexity, they're all phenomenal and they're all getting better. But as of right now, Claude's kind of leading the pack. So also, one thing I do want to note is we do these monthly AI collective. We have an AI collective called Strong Brands AI. And we meet monthly over Zoom calls. And we have a LinkedIn. I would invite you all to join it, because what this does is, as things progress, we kind of just keep you in the know. So we have these monthly calls. Our next one is next Thursday morning. So if to kind of continue this conversation, stay in the know. We bring on AI experts to help teach, and I kind of translate. So if there's more that you want to have on this discussion, you're always welcome to join those as well.
Excellent. I think we'll start wrapping it up, yeah. Okay, well, I'll wrap it up given the time frame here so we can all go back to work. But let's ground it in faith, because that's what will bring us together here. Is we're a Christian organization, we're Christian business people. I put a little graphic here from a thinker that I follow quite a bit in the project management world, but he's a thinker in terms of AI, just highlighting areas that AI hasn't touched yet, that because we're humans, One of them is, for example, spirituality. Will AI be in spirituality? I've heard of therapy with an agent that's talking to you, and I've heard people that say it's actually been pretty good. What if it was for those who are Catholic? What if it was a confession to an agent? That would be pretty weird. Empathy, leadership, storytelling, and so on. However, I do have to share a couple of examples that I think sort of uses this tool. And I just had it literally this week. A very close friend, his wife is fighting terminal cancer. So we came up with, a group of us came up with we need to do some crowdfunding because he's not going to be able to afford keeping up with her care. So we came up with some AI ideas to crowdfund, to use GoFund. And we discussed, and the program helped us create a campaign. So that's an example of something that you can use to help somebody with that tool. Another one, I do retreats, and I'll get into that in a minute. But I do little workshops with scriptures, and a lot of my audience are Spanish-speaking people. So a couple of weeks ago, I did the story of Mary and Martha. The story of Mary and Martha. Martha, Martha. And I wanted to show the story in a context of a Latino Hispanic group. So I told the software, hey, create this scene as if it was a Hispanic family, and Jesus looks a little Spanish. And I used that as to illustrate that. So I don't know, it worked. But that's an example. And sometimes I prepare talks where I will use the tool to help me prepare those talks for sharing my faith. So on that note, let me share my faith, share my testimony. As you know, CDRT is a Christian organization, and we try to share personal examples of how to integrate faith with work. So let me tell you my personal story. As you can hear from my accent, I mentioned earlier, I'm an immigrant. I came from Venezuela in October 1979. If you ask any immigrant, they will tell you exactly the day and the time they came, because it was a very crucial moment. I came to go to school. My father, I'm what's called a privileged migrant. Some people migrate for other reasons. I came to pursue a higher ed. And I went to Calvin College. Pretty interesting, because I had no correlation with the Christian Reformed Church. But anyways, that was my first exposure to the Christian faith. And while I was there, I received a letter from a very close friend. He was my best friend in high school. And he was the kind of person that your mother will tell you, don't ever hang out with that person. Bad, very much into partying, drugs, and so on. And then one day, while I was living here, I got a letter from him, and it was basically a 16-page letter. I still have a copy of it, of how he met Jesus. And it was like, wow. I didn't know how to respond. So, long story short, I decided to ask more questions about this encounter that he had, and I met this young man who introduced me to his mother. She was a Jewish woman who had become a Christian, and I had the classic conversion, where you pray the prayer and you give your life to Jesus, and that's how I got converted the first time. And I'm using that language purposely, because a lot of times we think it's a one time, but it's actually, you keep growing with him, and it keeps taking you deeper and deeper. So for the first 10 years, I was drinking out of that fire hose, reading scriptures. I went to every Bible study I could possibly go to. I had a very good fellowship, or a group of friends. This is in Grand Rapids area. And but yet, it was a faith that felt shallow. There was something else missing. I got married in between, and then when I got married, I met a group of men. I think this is what's important. It's when you meet people that are very grounded. And this group of men invited me to a Bible study. They were older than me, and at that time I was going through, I was in my 40s, the typical midlife crisis, marriage, kids, career. So I was really begging God to give me a mentor, because I needed somebody older than me that could guide me. Well, lo and behold, he brought me 25 men. And these 25 men took me in. And they were, in fact, I was talking to Matthew a few minutes ago. He went to a mission in Ecuador. These men wanted to help a missionary in Colombia and asked me if I would be willing to help them out. And they wanted to bring some computers to them in Colombia. Well, inviting me to go to Colombia is like telling somebody, do you want to go to Disney World? I mean, that's how much, it's where my mother's from, so it was like, yeah, I'll go right now. So I went there, and And then after I came back, this same group of mentors introduced me to a retreat house. If anybody is familiar with it, there's a retreat house right here on Woodward and Quarton called Manresa. It's a retreat house, and they asked me, hey, will you be interested in going to a retreat with us? And I went to this retreat, and it was on a Friday, and it's a silent retreat. Now think about it. You start on Friday, and you don't say a word until you come out on Sunday. Well, like I said, I was in my midlife crisis, and the monkey mind is just crazy. I had my own business at the time, and it was just a very intense time of my life. Friday, I couldn't be silent. Saturday, I started feeling a little bit of peace. And Sunday, and I choke telling you this, God filled me with so much peace. And I made a promise that I will never leave that state, not physically, but that state of silence. Since then, I've been having my quiet time every morning for an hour. Just me and him. We don't have to say anything. That's the beauty of silence. And after that, I decided to learn more about this silence. And my friend introduced me to, I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but it's called the spiritual exercises. And it's a program where you spend 9 months getting to know Jesus very closely in prayer and through scriptures. And it's a program that was established about 500 years ago by a guy named Ignatius of Loyola. So I decided to sign up for that program, and I met with a spiritual director, a spiritual companion that met me every week for an hour, and he gave me homework, exercises. I prayed with those exercises, and I would talk to him about it. And little by little, I started to getting to know Christ in a much deeper way through this process. When I finished, I was so on fire that I decided that I wanted to share this with others. So I pursued a training so I could become a spiritual director as well. And actually, I don't like to use the word spiritual director because really the only director is the Holy Spirit. I'm just a companion. So since then, I've been guiding people. I take usually about 5 people a year, and I do the same thing that this person did with me. I will meet with them for an hour. Nowadays, thanks to technology, I can meet with them through Zoom. But at the beginning, we actually reserved a room and met together. But nowadays, you can get more virtual. So I've guided people that are in different states or sometimes here, and being able to help them through that process to getting to know the Lord more. So at the end of the day, this conversion that I had, at the beginning with my friend, was just the beginning, And I feel like I'm still in that process of going deeper and deeper with the Lord. Thank you.